The plant of the month this year I've chosen to be, or this month I've chosen to be the pitcher sage, the Salvia azura variety grandiflora, also known as the blue sage, the big blue sage, the giant blue sage, the wild blue sage, the azure blue sage, the blue salvia, and the pitcher salvia. It has lots of names. And this is a picture of one of the immature plants in my flower bed, but it's beginning to flower out. Salvia, the name salvia comes from the Latin salvus, which means safe or sound or alive or free from difficulties. And it refers to the healing properties that are associated with salvia plants. And the word azurea, of course, it tells us it's blue, and it comes from an English word azure, from the Old English azure, from medieval Latin lazur, from the Greek lazur, and ultimately it comes from a Persian word that I guess is lawward or something like that. It actually meant deep blue when that word was coined, but today in English, azure is generally considered to be the blue of a clear sky, and I read in one place, the blue of a clear sky when you're looking to the south. So it is a kind of a pale blue, and this flower is a pale blue. But sometimes they pop out as white flowers. And this is a flower that I noticed just yesterday. It came up as a volunteer this year. It's about a foot or so high, and it just bloomed out. And it came out as white blooms. And I'm wondering that will the pollinators, like the bees and so forth, be as attracted to a white sage as they are to a blue sage? And I'll try to get this thing transplanted to a better spot next year and just see if the bees and such like come to the white one as well as they do to the blue. Pitcher, in the common name pitcher sage, honors a 19th century U.S. surgeon, Army surgeon, a botanist named Zena Pitcher. And the variety grandiflora indicates that it has large flowers that differentiates it from a variety that's Salvia azurea variety azurea. It's a somewhat smaller plant. It has somewhat deeper blue flowers on it. It is a warm season, long-lived, herbaceous, native perennial. If you look at the Bonap map, this shows a distribution for just Salvia azurea without regard to the variety. The dark green states are the states where this has been found, and then the light green counties that shows the actual counties where this has been found. And so then if we go to iNaturalist and look at the sightings there for Salvia azurea, which they call giant blue sage, and without looking at the variety, you see the iNaturalist sightings pretty well agree with what was shown on the Bonap map. And then if you look for the research grade sightings that are recorded as Salvia azurea, the variant grandiflora, you see that those are mainly in the Midland states, the middle part of the nation. And then the azurea, variety azurea, is confined to the southeastern part of the United States. Pitcher sage is a plant that gets 4 to 6 feet tall. Mine are just about eye level with me, so they're about 5.5 feet tall. The roots can reach down as far as 8 feet. The taller plants can flop over on you, and several of mine have flopped over. And I read that pruning these in early to midsummer can help with this, so make them a more compact plant. The leaves are narrow, linear, kind of a grayish green, more green than gray, and extend from all 4 sides of what is actually a square-shaped stem. The crushed leaves, like I've shown here, are aromatic, like other members of the mint family, and other members of that same family are catnip, peppermint, marjoram, oregano, rosemary, things that we use for spices. So I guess you could use these to spice up your food, but I don't know that anybody's tried that. Just comparing the pitcher sage with the mealy blue sage, another common plant around here. You'll see that the mealy blue sage is quite a deeper blue. The pitcher sage flowers seem to be somewhat larger than the mealy blue sage flowers also. And if you notice, the calyxes on the mealy blue sage are kind of a white color, whereas they're green on the pitcher sage. Further out view of the mealy blue stand of mealy blue sage on the left and of the pitcher sage on the right, you see there the white calyxes on the mealy blue sage are quite a dominant trait when you're looking at a stand compared to the green of the pitcher sage. Comparing the leaves of the two plants, these both came off of plants in my yard with the pitcher sage about 4 inches long. It can get longer. Mealy blue sage about 2.5. And the pitcher sage leaves are usually considerably narrower than what the mealy blue sage has. And comparing the seeds of them, the pitcher sage on the right, and what I did was line up enough seeds that it made an inch, and I got 9 seeds there. And so I took 9 seeds of the mealy blue sage, and they only reached the 5/8 of an inch. So it's a nominal difference anyway between the size of the pitcher sage seeds and the mealy blue sage seeds. You'll notice that some of these seeds are nice and black and look mature, while others are much paler and look like immature seeds. And one of the problems of trying to gather seeds from really either of these plants is that the flowers don't bloom all at once, and they don't bloom from the bottom up nor from the top down. They kind of bloom at random. And so at any time, you're going to find seeds along there that are, in any stage of maturity, and it's kind of hard to pick off the ones that are actually mature. They are of special importance to bumblebees. Bumblebees really like these flowers. It's interesting, last year I had probably 50 to 60 or more bumblebees at any one time in my yard working on plants. This year I probably have a dozen at the most. My guess is that they were hurt rather badly by the cold weather that we had this year. It's also interesting that last year the favorite flower for the bumblebees was the partridge pea of my yard. And they liked the pitcher sage a little bit less, and they liked the mealy blue sage even less than that. But now this year, this pitcher sage is the favorite plant, and then the mealy blue sage, and the partridge pea is actually lower on their menu items this year. And I don't know if they've learned that they don't get the nectar from the partridge peas or what the difference is, but there's certainly a difference in their feeding habits this year. It's also beneficial to hummingbirds and butterflies. I have seen some of the smaller butterflies on the pitcher sage, like the skipper butterflies. I've not seen hummingbirds visit them, but they probably do at times when I'm not looking. I just don't have very many hummingbirds moving through my yard. It has a long bloom period. It'll go from midsummer pretty late into the fall. And it can be one of the few plants that are in bloom in the fall. Here's a bee about to go into one of the blossoms. And I just wanted to bring your attention to the pollen sac on this bee. And he sticks his head in there to try to get to pollen or to nectar. And what it does, it drops the pollen on the back of the bee. And then he can take his legs and he can rub that pollen off. He puts some nectar on it to moisten it a little bit so it'll stick together, and then he brushes that against a hind leg. And so that pollen comes off, and it is kind of gathered there on the hind leg. And I'm calling him a he, but this is more than likely a female bee. Some of the other things about this, it'll grow in a wide range of soil types. The dry to medium moisture. It prefers sandy to gravelly soils. Mine is pretty sandy and gravelly, I'll tell you that. The main thing is that the soil needs to be well drained, otherwise the roots will tend to rot off of you. They really like sun, but will tolerate some shade. Mine get the sun for half a day. If you want to plant seeds from this plant, you need to do it in the fall. You can use unstratified seed and sow them in the ground in the fall. If you want to do it in the spring, they have to be stratified, or they really need to be stratified in the cold, moist stratification. It's pretty much disease-free. It will get spots and some rust on it late in the season, and my leaves are getting pretty spotty right now. And that's really all I know about the pitcher sage.